Hey everyone. So today I'm going to be covering the Cannabaceae family, which is also known as the Indian hemp family or just the hemp family in general, but it's comprised of about 11 genera and 170 different species, and I'm mainly going to be speaking about Cannabis humilis, which is the hop family, and then Celtis, which is known as the hackberry or nettle tree family. So Cannabaceae falls under the Rosales order on the phylogenetic tree or positioning, and it's like as you can see on the tree, it goes past eudicots to core eudicots, which means it is it, and it goes to rosids, and rosid splits into two groups, which you can see it would be under the group one for roses, rosid, which is Fabidae, and then you can just see it goes to Rosales. And for further classification, the kingdom is planty. The subkingdom, well, it's plants. The subkingdom is Trachyonobonita. Sorry, but it's vascular plants. The superdivision is Spermiophyta, which is seed plants. The division is Magnolophyta, which is flowering plants. The class is Magnopacida, which is dicotyledons or eudicots. The subclass is Rosidae, and the order is Rosales, which leads us to Cannabaceae. Continuing down the phylogenetic positioning, we can see all the families that fall under Rosales, and you can see where Cannabaceae falls. And to note, all the stars on this picture represent less than 50% support with its morphology, and the ones that don't have stars have greater than 80% support with it. And if you look to the left, you can see all of the species within, or all the genera and some species within the Cannabaceae family. So it's interesting if you start really looking into this. There's like a whole debate where Cannabaceae was moved into Celtaceae essentially, and it's like they look similar in ways, but they definitely have like some pretty big key differences in my eyes. But yeah, so it's like a lot of sources in the United States, like especially like the USDA and some other ones, they don't even acknowledge the change whatsoever. But if you look at a lot of modern literature and other sources, like especially from other countries, they support the change. And in 2003, the angiosperm phylogeny group merged Cannabaceae with Celtaceae based on genetic DNA evidence, and the merger is morphologically counterintuitive. Cannabis and homeless species are herbal plants, whereas Celtaceae is like a woody tree. Some can be classified as shrubs, but they're mostly all trees. And Yang et al. Provides the latest analysis utilizing four chloroplast DNA genes, and the results support this expanded family as a monophyletic group. Cannabis and Homilis form a clade that nests within the former Saltaceae genera, and naming the family Saltaceae might better reflect its members, but since the name Cannabaceae is older, it therefore holds the nomenclatural priority. So for key diagnostic traits, the Cannabaceae family consists of trees, herbs, or shrubs, and they're dioecious, meaning pistillate and staminate flowers are on separate plants. Um, the leaves are either alternate or opposite, sometimes can be both. and they're entire to palmately divided or lobed. And palmately divided is essentially, or palmate in general, is all the leaflets originate from one single place. And if it's lobed, it just means the leaves are lobed instead of entire. And they're with granular hairs, which are essentially trichomes. And the stipulate is an appendage often paired, found at the base of the petiole in some species of the plants, and it's a part of the leaf. So the inflorescence is compact or lacks auxiliary clusters, which means it's just like branching off the base or the stalk. And they're in panicles, and a panicle is a branched intermediate flower cluster with individual flowers on stalks. The male flowers are in auxiliary clusters or cymose panicles with 5 sepals. The petals are absent and 4 to 5 stamens, and they're opposite of the sepals. The female flowers are auxiliary with membranous bracts, and bracts are defined as modified leaves associated with the flowers, which differs from the foliage in leaves. So it's essentially just different kinds of leaves regarding like shape, size, texture, etc. The entire calyx is fused closely enveloping the ovary. The ovary itself is superior, and that means that the ovary isn't adnate to the bases of the other flowering parts. And it has 2 centrally attached styles and 1 petulous ovule, which means the ovule is kind of like free hanging. And also the ovary itself is hypogynous, which is a condition where the perianth elements and stamens are inserted directly onto the receptacle and are free from the gynosium, and no hypanthium is present, but stamens may be adnate to the corolla. And the fruit itself is an acne, which is a single-seeded dry fruit with a seed free from the pericarp except for the placenta. And it's enclosed by a persistent calyx or drupe, and a drupe is a fleshy one-seeded fruit with the pericarp differentiated into an exocarp, a mesocarp, and a stony endocarp that encloses the seed. As you can see in the pictures, they're all there. It's really interesting to try to look back on the molecular dating of family Cannabaceae and just really try to understand like how long ago Cannabaceae became Cannabaceae and all the shifts and patterns that have led to the species and genera that we know today within the family. But a study in the Journal of Systematics and Evolution was exploring the role of dispersal and shaping and disjunct patterns of species diversification of cosmopolitan plants. They reconstructed the phylogenetic relationships of Cannabaceae, and based off fossil calibrations, they estimated the divergence times and net diversification rates, and they inferred that Cannabaceae originated 93 million years ago. And it's crazy just to think about how long ago that was, and like all these other shifts and how long ago those were. And it's really cool just to see like those like how long ago those shifts were and how they led up to all the genera and species we know within Cannabaceae. The Cannabaceae family has a wide range for geological distribution, and it's like the members of the family are distributed nearly worldwide, but many are occurring throughout temperate parts of the northern hemisphere as well as tropical areas. And in summary, most of the Cannabaceae has origins in East Asia, but it's spread all over the world from natural migration to shifts from human interference. And the three I wanted to point out on this is Celtis, which is tropical mostly, and it's temperate, and it says Europe. The cannabis genera, which is mainly Asia but cultivated worldwide, and then Humulus, which is northern temperate, and yeah, it's just like it's like almost everywhere. It's where people are using it for the most part, but it does grow. Like a lot of them do grow in the wild. Regarding ecological distribution, Cannabaceae has a wide range of habitat possibilities, but it's more so dependent on species, and it's typically found in like terrestrial or near wetlands. And examples include meadows, fields, forests, shrublands, thickets, floodplains, and anthropogenic locations. And anthropogenic locations means like man-made locations, like especially for like cannabis L or humulus L. It's like they're commercial crops, so a lot of the time, like we're planting them where we want to plant them. So like, especially in like North America, it's like I don't know about hops, but like cannabis L, it's like you don't find that in the wild as much. It's more so, or like it could be the same for hops too, but like either way, it's like you have more of a chance of like finding them in like commercial locations where that plant is being used instead of the wild here, like in the United States. But it's interesting because like if you go to like somewhere like Jamaica or like it can be like this in Eastern Asia. But when I went to Jamaica, it's like cannabis L. Like that's literally like a ditch weed that you could like find on like the side of the road, like almost anywhere. It's like I feel as if the laws within the United States made it so like it wasn't like that when it made its way over here, like way back when. Like I don't know, it's cool to see like the patterns and shifts on like where it went and how it grows exactly. Because I feel like it's a lot more commercialized here, but if you consider it like other places, it's just like any other plant, like it's just like any other weed, you know, like they grow like anywhere. Like I'm sure hops grows in the wild here, and I'm sure there are some cannabis growing in the wild here too. But it's just like all these different like man-made decisions have like impacted its like natural path here. And I don't know, it's just cool. To, like on this tree, you can see a lot of the shifts from like day one to like now, like how like it doesn't tell you how, but it shows you like where these plants like originated and like how they ended up where they are, like or like where they ended up. Like it's cool to see. The Cannabaceae family is actually really diverse in my eyes because like throughout its descent through time, they've had many shifts from the Cretaceous era up to now, and essentially it's like all of these like crazy events happening in the past, like all of the crazy climate shifts and like drastic temperature drops, like all of these different environmental factors that have played into its natural selection and everything else have made Cannabaceae plants like very hardy plants. Like they can handle like really warm temperatures or cold spikes for a couple days. Like they're just like in general, they're just like really hardy plants. Like they can survive like a good amount, and that's all because of like ever changing climate factors along with genetic response and evolution that has led to the range of diversification within Cannabaceae. Like all of those events happening in the past and its natural migration pattern, just like how long this plant has been around, has led to its diversity rates and its like overall hardiness as a plant. My first example of plant species is Cannabis sativa L. which is known as industrial hemp, and it's actually interesting because like it can either be subgroups or it can either be all different cannabis sativa. Like cannabis sativa is the genus, but then there's all these different varieties of it which make up like cannabis L in general. Like it's debated on whether or not it's all different genera or if it's just all like subfamilies within the genera. Like there's cannabis indica, like there's cannabis rudalis, like there's cannabis afghani, like all these like other kinds of species or like subspecies, and it's interesting to see where that classification will end up in the future. But okay, so with cannabis sativa, the leaves are alternate and opposite, and as you can see in the first two pictures on the left side, the top picture is opposite arrangement, and the bottom picture is alternate arrangement. And the leaves themselves, they're compound, again simple, and they're toothed, and they can be fuzzy or hairy with granular hairs. And the picture on the top right is a cannabis leaf, and the flowers are imperfect and incomplete. They're dioecious, and there's five sepals, which are distinct, no petals, five stamens, and style is branched with two or more narrow appendages that are part of the stigma, and there's a superior ovary. And you can see the fruits on the bottom right image, and to the left is the female fruit or flower, but it's more so the fruit, and the on the right, you can see the male flower or fruit, and just the fruit itself is an acne. There's just a little more detail with the anatomy of the female flower on Cannabis sativa L. So on the photo to the left, you can see all the major parts labeled, and that's essentially what it looks like. Those are essentially all of the parts that play into this flower before it's pollinated and grows into the fruit. And on the photo above me, the first picture is showing an immature female flower with two stigmas, which are the yellow arrows, and how they're attached to an ovule inside of the bracts, and the blue arrows representing the bracts, which you can see more so on the photo to the left. But in the middle photo, you can see the bracts are removed and the pistillets now visible. So you can see the stigmas, you can see the style somewhat, like you can see the ovary, the ovule, all that, and that's just like the yellow and red arrows. And once the flower has been pollinated, the stigmas begin to fade, and the ovule grows into a seed while covered in about 7% thin layer, which is called the perianth. It's hard to see, but it's there as far as I can tell. So this is diving into the male or staminate flower, and with the pictures to the left, you can see in D through F the opening of the male flowers to reveal five green white tepals, which expose five stamens, each attached to a filament that dangles the anther. And in G, you can see large amounts of pollen being released through the longitudinal groove of the anther. And in H, you can see an enlarged view of the sternum showing formation of bulbous trichomes. And that's forming in the groove of the anther. And then I is just essentially a close-up of a trichome. And that's just essentially the process the staminate flower goes through to release pollen. Is Humulus lupulus L, which is common hop, and the leaves are opposite, compound and simple, and toothed, but can be fuzzy or hairy with granular hairs. It's like it's all like essentially very very close to the cannabis plant, but with slight differences. The flowers are imperfect but complete, dioecious, five sepals, five petals, five stamens. The style is unbranched with two or more narrow appendages that are part of the stigma. Superior ovary, and the fruit is an acne. That's what it's grown for commercially. Um, you can see in the bottom left photo the opposite leaf arrangement, and then in the middle bottom photo you can see the leaf structure on how it's toothed and it's palmately lobed. Here you can see more of the anatomy of the female hop flowers along with the cone and the seeded bracteole. But the female flowers are clustered at the tips of the stalks arising from the leaf axils at branch tips, with 10 to 50 pairs of flowers in a cluster, each pair subtended by a green to yellowish bract, mostly blunt at the tip and dotted with the yellow glands at the base. The female flowers have two long thread-like styles and no petals. Female clusters are up to 3/4 inch long with a series of rounded hairless bracts around the base. And as you can see in the photos, it's just more of the botanical naming of the parts, like from the cone to the flower. So the Cannabaceae family as a whole has a lot of unique traits, but looking more so into Cannabaceae and Homolus, there's good things to compare about them. It's like there are a lot of similarities, but there are differences as well. But members of Cannabaceae and Homolus are both dioecious and anamorphous, meaning they favor open sunny habitats. They're wind pollinated, and they both have male and female plants. Like they both have pistillate and staminate flowers on separate plants most of the time. They both have resinous flowers with a very similar structure. Their leaves are both palmately lobed or a tooth, but they're serrated along the margins and always have stipules at the base of their stalks. The the pistillate flower structure is almost identical in ways, to the can like both of them are both almost identical. And additionally, they both have many different varieties that have a unique build of terpenes. And terpenes are compounds that express therapeutic attributes along with interesting aromas. Some of the most common terpenes found in hops are beta, pinene, alpha, humulene, and mycene. And those terpenes are also commonly found in the cannabis plant. And regarding terpenes in general, those terpenes are always in the cannabis plant for the most part, but there's a lot more variation in terpenes and like cannabinoids and whatnot with the cannabis plant considered to hop. So it's very interesting to see when they split off from each other how that exactly played out, like what genetic variation led cannabis L to have those traits instead of hops. And the commercial value of each plant is generally favored on the female plant over the male, but they both play their part. In today's society, these plants and the industries they fall into have been shaped by prohibition, along with the misconceptions which put a negative image on these valuable species, like going all the way back to like alcohol prohibition and like going on like prohibition today, even though we've made a lot of progress regarding prohibition in the United States. But either way, hops is commonly used to flavor beer and prevent bacterial contamination during fermenting, and cannabis L has many different uses such as fibers, oils, textiles, medicines, etc. Like the list goes on and on.